And welcome to another fantastic edition of It's a Sports Show. My name is Dolphin Paul, and to my left we have a special guest, Jay Pyrus. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Paul. Hopefully I can live up to your high standards.
Oh, you obviously don't know anything about the show. But we got to make kind of a disclaimer first, because normally it's me and Scott Cray. Most people know Scott Cray. We've been doing the show for a few years, but we've had some scheduling conflicts lately. Therefore, we've had to make some shifts in our lineup, and unfortunately, we haven't been on. So, for our 6 family members that watch the show, they don't know where we've been. So, we're going to try to continue on and get this schedule worked out where we can be on almost every week, and hopefully that'll work out okay. But for now, Jay, you're kind of pinch hitting. You're like David Ortiz, Big Papi, and
taking one for the team.
Taking one for the team, and who knows? Scott Cray's, he's doing other things, and the schedule is a little tougher. So we'll see what happens, but we'll try to keep our great viewers abreast of things going on in sports.
Glad to be here.
Well, a lot to talk about. We haven't been here in a few weeks. Of course, you haven't been here, but one of your passions, of course, to give you a little background, Jay's a huge Red Sox fan. So all you Red Sox fans out there will be ecstatic with Jay in the house. He's unbelievably a 49er fan, like
yes,
Scott.
Indeed.
Hey, listen, I'm not biased towards Patriot fans, but hey, we haven't got any Patriot co-hosts. So Jay's filling in, and he's a 49er fan, but he only likes a 49er. Scott Cray. Scott is here. He kind of likes, he's a drifter. 49ers, Bengals. I think he likes the uniforms. He's like a
bounces
chick.
around from bandwagon to bandwagon.
Well, let's get going. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on. Jay, let's start with one of your favorite subjects, the Boston Red Sox. And Jen, our producer here, as you can tell before the show, so he was mentioning that the Yankees are 3.5. What does this mean? What does this mean in your opinion? I mean, do you think that it's a deadlock, that the Sox will win this division?
I don't think it's a lock that they will win a division. The Red Sox have a lot of injuries they're dealing with right now. Obviously, Manny Ramirez, who knows when he'll be back. Kevin Youkilis getting hit in the wrist over the weekend. He's out, for the time being at least. Tim Wakefield is just now starting to recover from his injury. So, no, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they win the division. They do have a large enough lead over the other teams in the American League that I think they would get the wild card at the very least. But 3.5 games, considering it was 14.5 games at one point this season, is a little tighter than I would liked it to have been.
Would it still be a disaster? I feel like Scott Cray asked another question. Usually I provide the answers. I don't know if this works out for me, but would it be a disaster if they did lose the division lead and did go in as a wild card, kind of limping?
I think so. I think
the psyche of the team.
I think when you look back at the 2004 playoffs and even the 2003 playoffs, when they lost in Game 7 of the ALCS, they went into the postseason on a hot streak. Especially in 2004, I think they went something like 34-15 down the stretch. So they went in riding a wave of momentum that carried them through the playoffs. We saw last year St. Louis not have a very good season, ride a wave of momentum into the playoffs and win the World Series remarkably with 86 wins. So you look, momentum is a key factor heading into the postseason. You don't want to back in after having blown a 14.5 game lead in the division.
Are the Red Sox don't have any momentum, or just those, I don't even know if I can say it on cable TV, those Yankees playing so well, which they are.
They are.
You've got to give the Yankees credit. They're playing lights out right now, and the frightening trend is that the Red Sox, they got swept the last time, and now this past series this weekend, as we taped the show on a Tuesday night, they lost 2 out of 3.
Yep.
And unbelievably, with Okajima and Papelbon on the mound. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was on Friday.
Night.
They blew the big lead.
Yep.
Then they came back and won big Saturday, and Sunday they lost again towards the end of the game in the bullpen. So,
right.
I mean, I know what everybody wants to see. They want to see the Yankees Red Sox because it'll be great, and it would be great. But, I mean, Jen, close your ears. Do Red Sox fans want to see the Yankees?
At this point, I'm with you. I don't want to see the Yankees. The Red Sox have shown since May, they opened up having won 6 out of 7 from the Yankees the first couple months of the season, and since then they have not shown an ability to beat them. So, yeah, I'm with you. It would be, I don't want to see them in the postseason.
So now they, I mean, you made a few points. I mean, they don't have Ramirez, which is big.
Right.
Youkilis is kind of hurt. I mean, I would say the biggest Red Sox inconsistency is hitting.
Right.
At times. Would you agree with that? Or?
Absolutely. You see, they have games where they'll score like Saturday 10 runs, and then they'll have the following day they'll score 1 run, 2 runs. They need to hit on a more consistent basis. They're 4th or 5th, if I'm not mistaken, in the league in runs scored. However, they have a lot of games that skew that. They've had a lot of 10, 11, 12-run ball games against teams like Tampa Bay that they should beat up on. When they have to hit in the clutch, it seems like they're not doing it. They've had a few clutch hits this year. We remember Mother's Day with Julio Lugo. David Ortiz finally hit a walk-off last week, if I'm not mistaken, against Tampa Bay. They've had a few clutch hits, but it hasn't been like an 03, 04, and 05 where it's
not even close.
Right, where it seems like no matter how far behind they are in the game, you have a good feeling that they're going to come back and win that game. And you just don't feel that this way.
Not to get off the subject too much, but somebody mentioned who's more clutch, Jeter or Ortiz. They brought that up the other day, and I think pretty much everybody said over the long haul, certainly Jeter.
Right.
I mean, career-wise,
right.
03, 04, 05, in that range, Big Papi was
absolutely
head and shoulders above everybody else. But you're right, they haven't had those big dramatic come from behind. They've had a couple, but that kind of worries you heading into the playoffs. I think so. Inconsistency hitting is one thing that kind of worries everybody because you never know what you're going to get. A couple other things. Our friends from the Far East.
Yes.
Okajima and Matsuzaka, my boy Matsuzaka. They, there's talk of them hitting the wall. People aren't sure. Should they rest them? I know Daisuke, I believe, is getting the rest for Clay Buchholz.
Wednesday. Correct.
Wednesday, so that everybody will have known the result, but by the time this show airs. So, and it's unfortunate the Red Sox have a 3.5 game lead. If they had a 10-game lead, you could kind of not shut these guys down, but kind of just really ease them into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, Terry Francona has to be careful here because I know you mentioned before the show that Francona's kind of playing it like they almost have the Division One. So,
right, if you look at
it's a balance.
Right, if you look at last night's game, Monday night's game, for example, you had Jason Varitek out of the lineup because Tim Wakefield was pitching. Manny Ramirez is obviously out. We mentioned he's injured, and Kevin Youkilis is injured. Terry Francona then goes and gives Julio Lugo a day off. Not that Julio Lugo is a superstar player, but he's still a starter. You're also looking at the fact that they pushed back Matsuzaka's start. So, he's almost playing it as if they've got the playoffs wrapped up, and they really don't. They could go on a losing streak here. The Yankees could go on a winning streak, and suddenly we're looking at a one-game advantage over the Yankees.
Here's the basic question. Are you fairly confident they're going to win the division? Not so confident? Maybe? Pessimistic? What kind of Red Sox fan are you?
I'm always pessimistic.
I know you're.
You know that. But
absolutely.
No, I am fairly confident that they will win the division.
I would agree with you. I think they got the division locked up because they've had this nice big lead. But the Yankees certainly do scare you heading into the playoffs. And the playoffs are a little different because the pitching gets a little tighter.
Right.
The hitting gets a little tighter, and you don't have to score 10 runs. Usually, you just get a couple clutch hits, and
absolutely,
they'll have to do that. Jacoby Ellsbury there
has been
nice
huge
looking
for this
rookie.
team.
Pedroia's had a good year.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Lowell, I talk with this about Scott, and it's
absolutely.
funny that Scott's not here. I'll give him credit. When they made the Beckett trade, we sat here on this very table, and he was like, "Oh, Mike Lowell." Like, listen, Mike Lowell. What are you talking about, Mike Lowell? I said he was a throw-in for Beckett. What? No, I think this guy's gonna. If he gets at bats, I said, "Listen, you're nuts." Mike Lowell. And I just thought about that the other day. I said, man, this guy, somebody mentioned to me, not bad for a throw-in. I said, you know what? You're right. This guy was a throw-in to a trade.
They had to take him to get Beckett, absolutely.
They had to take him. And boy, do you want to talk about a guy who knows when to have a good season. Right. He's a free agent. So you want to talk about cha-ching, cashing in.
Absolutely.
Great job for Mike Lowell. And unlike last year, he hasn't really veered off. He's had a very steady year. A lot of good hits. So, again, listen, we're going to get about 11, 12 games.
Right.
Baseball season, I have a saying here, Jake, that you don't know that it's a long season. I say it's a long season. Ding, there you go. That's our sound effects. Ding. It's a very long season. Thank God it's coming to an end. Let's get to this playoffs. It's 1,000, 1,800, 46, 50,000 games. But 11 to go. We'll keep you updated on the Red Sox.
Yeah, the Red Sox, since the All-Star break, have the third best winning percentage in baseball. It's not like they're playing bad. It's that the
Yankees are playing phenomenal.
It's a historic pace they're on right now. It's unbelievable. It's the best under Joe Torre's.
And they had a lot of catching up to do. All right, let's go to one of my favorite subjects. Well, probably my favorite subject almost in the world.
Patriot bashing?
Patriot bashing, that's right behind it. NFL football. Now, after a couple weeks, we really haven't talked much. Again, we haven't done the show. We're trying to catch up here. A couple painful conclusions for myself. At least one. My Dolphins suck. They're not very good right now. I've watched both games every minute, and they have some problems. So this is rough. I'm not used to this being a fan of a team whose season is almost. When you start looking towards a draft in September, a little bit of a problem with your football team. But before we get to that, let's get to this big story. Spygate, Videogate. I know Patriot fans are sick of hearing about it. I know if Patriot fans are watching this show, they're probably going to turn it off and throw things at the TV. That's okay. Come on, bring it on. But, as we all know, Belichick got caught. I mean, we're not going to go through the whole history because it's going to take a long time. We only have a half-hour show. But essentially, he got caught filming the Jets' defensive signals on the sideline with Matt Estrella from New Bedford, probably a fellow Portuguese countryman, filming the Jets' defensive signals. Somebody ratted him out. They took the tape to NFL headquarters, which, by the way, was around the corner. I could have jogged to it. I mean, I would have got there in 2 days, but I could have jogged to it. Basically, Roger Goodell came down with a stiff fine, $500,000 for Belichick, $250,000 for the Patriots, and the number 1 draft pick if they make the playoffs, which, let's be honest, they're going to make the playoffs. And the 2 and 3, which is also pretty stiff, I think is worse if they don't make the playoffs. So a very heavy fine. Of course, people like myself, who have nothing to root for in football, took big shots at the New England Patriots. So, I mean, how do you feel about this whole thing? I know, most Patriot fans, a lot of Patriot fans are defending their team, of course.
Right.
But, it's come out that the old everybody does it. I mean, how do you feel about this whole thing? I know people are mad at Goodell now. You want to talk about the venom towards Mangini? I've heard him called a fat rat. I can't wait till he comes to Foxborough. So everybody, they want to chase Mangini down, who ironically, today as we speak on Tuesday, was accused by Bill Billick of his defense shouting out the offensive cadences in football, whatever. So all heck's broken loose in the NFL. But what's your view on this Belichick deal?
Well, it's
and again,
obviously.
You are a 49er fan.
Yeah,
so
let me mention that.
We might
obviously
be a little skewed here.
Right. It's a huge story, and it's going to continue to be a huge story throughout the season because you've got teams now like the Pittsburgh Steelers who lost a couple AFC championship games to New England. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles who lost the Super Bowl to New England, talking about, I forget who the player was, but there was a member of the Eagles that said, well, we want our rings back. And I know Hines Ward had some things to say about it, so it calls into question, right or wrong.
And Hines Ward, just to make a little note, Hines Ward plays offense.
Right, true. So, but, it calls into question, right or wrong, it calls into question everything that this team has done in their remarkable run. Whether or not they gained any advantage from the video remains to be seen. There are people that think that they didn't. There's some that think that they did. My personal opinion on it, Bill Belichick wouldn't have done it had he not gained some sort of advantage. It would have been a waste of his time. People say that it doesn't help you in-game. That's true. Maybe he was, getting some scouting reports on defensive coordinators. Whether or not they play that team again that year, when you talk about the Dolphins, the Jets, they play them a couple times a year. Or another thing that's been mentioned is that he likes to scout defensive coordinators so that he knows their tendencies when they move on as head coaches elsewhere, defensive coordinators elsewhere. So, I mean, it's
almost
a
like
huge
software
story.
Having a backup on a lot of coaches.
Right, exactly. It's a huge story.
There's been a lot of contradicting reports. I think a lot of the coaches, because they're a very tight-knit fraternity, a lot of them came out, i.e. Jimmy Johnson, who said, I used to do this. I used to go to the coaches' booths after the game.
Right.
And look through their trash because they used to have all their scouting reports and everything, and they used to throw them away. So he used to take them and found, which is all well and good. But I think the biggest thing is what you said. It brings into question what the Patriots have done. Now, although I volunteered to go get the trophies up at Gillette, I mean, they're not going to take any trophies away. All this does, and Patriot fans can say whatever they want, is bring in some questions, like you said, what they did in the past. They won a lot of close games. They won 3 Super Bowls by a total of 9 points.
Right.
It's been an unbelievable run, but they've had some teams with not the greatest talent. We've heard the team and so forth. But this brings a lot of questions and a lot of unwanted questions for Robert Kraft and the team itself. And Belichick took a big hit all week. I mean, all you got to do is go on YouTube, the new Patriots logo with the guy filming, the Belichick, the Videogate, Spygate, and all that. So it's been an unbelievable story, and I'm sure Patriot fans are sick of it, but, it was a big story, and Goodell came out, and people say, no, they're after us. I don't think so. It was a big story. He had to come on NBC and make a comment about it. So I know it's only been a week, but, if you're a fan of the Patriots, you're probably sick of hearing about it. Now, people say, we crushed the Chargers. Listen, this Patriot team is talented enough not to have to do anything. Now, are the other teams illegitimate wins? No. But all I'm saying, like you said, it brings into question everything they've done. I mean, people can say, everybody does it. Well, the Patriots are the ones who got caught.
Right.
People keep saying that. Not everybody stands there with a camera and films a defensive signal. Do they have a guy up in the stands? Maybe they do. I mean, everybody looks at defensive signal, tries to pick them up by, legal. Or on top of that, here's the problem too. They were warned about this right before the season. So Belichick is kind of being arrogant in this situation. He gave us the old interpretation of the rules, but the commissioner showed how much he bought it by fining him $500,000.
Right.
So, again, they have a tremendous team this year.
No question.
Especially with Randy Moss. I mean, this is to me personally, probably their most talented team, especially on offense. I mean, Tom Brady's got all the weapons, and they went out Sunday night and demolished the Chargers. And the Chargers were doing a lot of talking. I don't like the Patriots, but Rosie Colvin said it best. Last year was last year. The Chargers are like, we're going to get revenge in New England. You're going to New England, so keep your mouth shut, kind of, because you know what I mean. I mean, it's hard to do that. And Rosie Colvin said last year was last year. Patriots do a good job of that, putting things away and just moving on. And it's just been an unbelievable story. One of the biggest stories ever in the NFL.
No question. And to me, this is bad news for the rest of the NFL. I know we've talked about it before. The Patriots, and to a non-Patriot fan, that drives us nuts because their fans think they can do no wrong. The media, national media, loves them, yet they always have this us against the world mentality. Nobody believed in us. We're going to go out and prove everybody wrong. Now they really do have a reason to believe that. They have a reason to think that everyone's against them and that nobody believes in them. This is only going to give them further motivation. And like you said, this is probably the most talented team on terms of just on paper.
They didn't have any motivation because their expectations with their roster, people were putting them already in the Super Bowl. So they were kind of in a no-win situation. If they win the Super Bowl, it'd be like, well, look at who you got. You brought in Randy Moss, Dante Stallworth, questionable guys. You brought in some Miami guys, of course. That's how they win Super Bowls, is when they bring in like T-Buck and, Damon Hewitt. Now it's Sammy Morris and Wes Welker. I mean, it's unbelievable. But Heath Evans, is that it? No. But, yeah, I mean, they really were expected. They couldn't play the underdog card until now.
Right.
And they came out. I was a little worried about this Sunday game from a Chargers standpoint. Patriots came out, and they were ready to play and fight up. And they always do a good job of that. So we'll see where this leads. There's more investigations going on, but, boy.
Another thing is, what does this do to Eric Mangini? You touched on it, that the NFL coaches are like a fraternity. And you're already seeing some backlash against Eric Mangini. You heard it from Brian Billick, like you talked about. Where does this leave Eric Mangini now? He was in that system. Does he not look like a hypocrite now when it was to his benefit as a coach of the New England Patriots?
I would agree, because they said, they've been doing this for years. Well, hello, like some people said, he was holding a court to that camera not too long ago.
Absolutely.
But in his defense, I mean, they did get a letter. I mean, the Patriots were in New York, right next to the headquarters, at their rivals, with a former coach, and then sitting there with a camera. So,
it's arrogant,
I mean, I understand what you're saying with the Mangini and Goodell and everything, but listen, the Patriots are the ones who did wrong, and everybody's trying to deflect blame around here. Patriots were the ones who did wrong.
No question about it.
Everybody else does it and did it, but they got caught, and they paid the consequences for it, and we'll see what goes on. But listen, it only brings up questions. That's it.
It's a major story, because you've already heard things.
I mean, many Patriot fans are upset. Many Patriot fans, and I would be too, because they've had this great legacy, and now it's tarnished by this stupid incident, which they didn't even need.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the NFL itself, because Jen, how much time do we have?
You got about 12 minutes.
12 minutes?
Plenty of time.
I'm totally fine with the whole videotaping thing. That's cool.
You're fine with the videotaping thing?
Yeah, that's cool with me.
That's coming from a production person. No wonder. Maybe she was on the sidelines.
And a Yankees fan, nonetheless.
A Yankees fan. Wow.
No, that's.
Jay just.
Sorry, taking shots already. My first day here. That's not right.
Jay just started today. You're taking shots at Jen.
That's not right.
But what happened was also Belichick. He was filming the Miami defensive signals, and then after 5 minutes he said, forget about it. No, I just had to throw that in. Well, we got 12 minutes, so I thought we had to go on a little further. Let's talk about the NFL itself. Of course, you're a 49er fan.
Yep.
They're 2-0. We'll start there a little bit, just talk about different teams in the NFL. But they haven't looked great offensively.
No, not at all. Actually, the loss of Norv Turner has hurt them more than I thought it was going to. I thought it would hurt them initially. The play calling has been far too conservative. They are running the ball the vast majority of the time, they're not putting the ball in Alex Smith's hands. They're playing for 3 a lot of times. This past weekend, they actually had a situation where it was a 3rd and 6, pretty much a first down, ends the game. They chose to run the ball. Excuse me, a 3rd and 11. So it seems like they're almost playing for the field goal. They're being far too conservative. The defense, for the first time in years, is playing well. Nate Clements has been a huge addition to this team, but unfortunately, the offense just is not up to par with the defense.
Unfortunately, sometimes when you get, I know they got an offensive coordinator, but sometimes that's why Miami brought in an offensive coach, because they were so offensively conservative by nature.
Right.
And sometimes it's because a young quarterback in your case.
And Mike Nolan comes from the Baltimore Ravens, which is a defensive-minded team.
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Exactly.
Looking at that division real quick, the NFC West, Arizona's 1-1. Of course, Arizona, we've been waiting for them to break up for about 100 years. But I mean, you got Matt Leinart now in his 2nd year. You got some good receivers. You got Edgerrin James. They had a nice win last week. Seattle at 1-1. Lost the first week.
No, they actually lost this past week to Arizona. They won week 1 at Tampa Bay.
Arizona. I should know that. That's why we bring Jay on, because I'm getting rusty. And St. Louis is not really a surprise 0-2, but I mean, they still got Bulger and Torrey Holt and Steven Jackson. Fantasy owners are panicking a little bit with Steven Jackson. They're 0-2, so a little bit of change in that division there. Where correct me if I'm wrong, but the 49ers was struggled in the past, 5-6 years against St. Louis?
Yes, actually, last year, the last 2 years under the Nolan regime, they've actually been 3-1 going into this past week. So actually 4-1 now against the Rams in the last several years. Prior to that, starting in '99, I think they went 0-7, if I'm not mistaken, or 0-8 against the Rams.
That's why we bring you on, because you got all this information stored in your head.
It's been a rough few years against the Rams, and last year the 49ers beat Seattle a couple times. Granted, Seattle was banged up, so
all right,
it's a tough division.
Let's fly through these divisions so we can get to the AFC East. I'm sure a lot of people want to hear about the mighty Patriots, but the NFC North, you have a surprise team there, Detroit. A lot of people said they might be good, but again, Detroit's one of those teams like Arizona in loser purgatory. They never can turn the corner, but you've got John Kitna. Got Calvin Johnson, who's on my fantasy team. Haven't played him yet, but he's got 2 touchdowns. Roy Williams. So they have some good skill players, and they won a close game against a rival Minnesota.
Right.
They're 2-0. Green Bay is 2-0. Brett Favre, unfortunately, is going to break Dan Demand's touchdown records. He only needs 3 to tie, 4 to go ahead. But you know what? Favre proved to me this year that he still can bring it. Yeah, he still can play at a high level. I know a lot of people wanted him to quit, but I think if you surround these older quarterbacks with a good team, they got enough upstairs. And plus, he's always had a cannon for an arm. So
absolutely.
They're 2-0, and Minnesota 1-1 and Chicago 1-1. So I think that's going to be a pretty tough division.
That's a tough division as well, absolutely. Especially once you get down into the winter, those North teams, it's tough. Playing in Chicago is tough. Playing in Green Bay is extremely tough. So that's going to be a tough division.
They can have it. The NFC South is kind of a surprise because, again, getting back to fantasy, I got Drew Brees as my fantasy quarterback. New Orleans 0-2, and they've scored 24 points.
Yeah.
Miami has scored 33. When you don't score more points than the Dolphins, you have a problem. And New Orleans basically doesn't have any injuries. They're just kind of stymied. And they've fallen to 0-2. So how about that fan base after a great, NFC championship last year and now start the season at 0-2?
You look at the talent with McAllister and Reggie Bush coming out of the backfield, Marcus Colston. I mean, that's a huge surprise.
I wonder if it's a case of have people who caught on to them already? I mean, do they know their offense?
It's a huge surprise.
It's a little bit of a struggle. They play next Monday night and 0-2. I mean, that's obviously a big game against the Tennessee Titans, who we'll get to shortly.
And New Orleans' defense isn't very good. They have to score points to win, and they're not doing it.
That's a good point. Atlanta 0-2. They just signed Byron Leftwich today to a 2 years, $7 million deal. Their offense is putrid. Tampa Bay, with a nice win this week, they're 1-1. Jeff Garcia to Joey Galloway, boy, that's kind of a lethal combination.
A veteran team.
Then Carolina with Steve Smith, who, not because I have him on my fantasy team.
I do also.
I mean, he is an unbelievable player. See, there's some guys who have talent, and there's guys who know how to play the game. This guy knows how to play the game. They were losing by a bunch. He caught a pass. He got tackled by 100 people, and he came out of the pile and ran for a touchdown. So
absolutely.
That, to me, shows a lot. This guy can just play football, and if he's not in the top maybe 2 or 3 receivers in the NFL, and he's not like one of those 6'4" guys.
Oh, he's 5'9", if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Gives us little short guys some hope, baby. Absolutely. So that division, that's kind of going to be a battle there. NFC East, a lot of Giant fans in the area, Dallas fans, of course. The Cowboys have some offensive talent. Marion Barber, again, geez, everybody's in my fantasy team. Tony Romo went down to Miami. Miami put up a fight for 2.5 quarters and then just kind of imploded. Dallas has got a little bit of talent. Washington is 2-0 with Jason Campbell, which is a little bit of a surprise.
It
They
is.
squeaked one by Miami, but they went to Philly last night and got a win in Philadelphia. So now a lot of criticism levied against Donovan McNabb, and he made some comments about black quarterbacks
Yes.
getting a little more criticism than white quarterbacks. I don't know if we have time to talk about that today, but
5 minutes, Dolph.
okay, thank you, hon. You want to offer very quick?
Yeah, well, there was some talk that, and he himself has mentioned that he's only about 80% back from that ACL tear, and there was some talk that the team wanted him to remove the leg brace. He doesn't feel comfortable without it, so it's basically going to be a feeling out process with them in the first few weeks. He needs to know what he can do on that leg, what he feels comfortable with doing, and that could take some time to figure out, and if it does, you know, that doesn't bode well for the Philadelphia Eagles, especially when Jeff Garcia came in last year and did what he did. Donovan McNabb's not going to get much slack from the fans.
I mean, the Giants are 0-2. We know they've got some problems. Eli Manning, defensively, the Giants aren't very good.
Even Brandon Jacobs is hurt.
Strahan came back.
Yep.
Now, Detroit's at Philly, and they're catching like 5 or 6 points, which, you know, the odds makers almost seems like a trap there. So, in other words, my point is Philly and New Orleans, these teams are at 0-2.
Yep.
I mean, you really got to, you know, you can't, if you go 0-3, to me there's a big difference. Not because
your margin for error
Not
shrinks.
because Miami's 0-2, but that's a big
Yep.
game for Miami, too, if they have any hopes of salvaging the season. You go to 0-3, boy, you know, you got some problems.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move over to the powerhouse AFC,
Yep.
AFC West real quick. Denver Broncos 2-0, but not looking that overpowering.
Gave up a big lead to Oakland, just barely
Oakland.
squeaked that one out. So yeah, they're
And
not looking.
Janikowski missed the field goal, hit
That's right.
the upper bar, whatever the heck you call it, goalpost, and bounced off after he had made it, but Shanahan had called a timeout.
Yeah.
So that timeout really came into play. Now,
A little more coach trickery.
Coach trickery, skullduggery, and they went down and scored. San Diego 1-1 after that thumping by. You know, they haven't looked as sharp as they did last year. Again, there's all kinds of questions with North Turner, this whole.
New head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. It's going to take some time for that team to gel.
Very good, Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith in the house. Kansas City 0-2. I think they're going to struggle. I'm not a big fan of Herm Edwards. Maybe because he was a Jet. Hello, we play to win the game. I'm just not a big fan of Herm. Oakland 0-2. Of course, just signed Jamarcus Russell. They're going to struggle offensively. In the North, we got the Steelers looking pretty good.
Look
with Roethlisberger 2-0.
Yep.
And then you got Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Cleveland played to Cleveland had 1,125 and Cincinnati had 1,120.
That game was incredible.
Unbelievable offensive slugfest.
Yep.
But defensively, boy, here's the ironic thing. Let me just make a point real quick. And, you know, I'm not going to make an understatement here. Billick's an offensive genius. He's in Baltimore. And Marvin Lewis is a defensive genius. He's in Cincinnati. What's wrong with that picture? I mean, that's unbelievable. Right? I mean, those guys, they just, I mean, when you give up 6 touchdowns, 5
Absolutely.
I mean, it's fun to watch, but man, give it a break already. The South, Houston is one of the surprise teams of the league so far. Matt Schaub, Andre Johnson, Amobe Okoye on defense.
Yep.
They're playing some good ball.
They have some talent. D'Amico Ryans, obviously Mario Williams, number 1 pick. We can debate whether he should have been the number 1 pick, but he was. So, they have some talent on that team.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
They're 2-0. So there's some key games this week. Before we get to the AFC East, Philly 0-2, New Orleans 0-2. So teams that are 2-0. Houston, Washington, Detroit, Green Bay. Interesting stuff in the NFL.
Yeah,
so we'll see if these trends hold on. AFC East, I mean, it's pretty easy. As much as, we talk about Belichick. Now, let me say this to all Patriot fans. In the New York Post,
yes,
they have the standings, and they have an asterisk next to the New England name, and right underneath that division, the asterisk says caught cheating. This is in the New York Post. We're not making this up. It'll probably be there all week if you guys want to check it by the time you see the show.
Might be there all season.
Yeah, it might be there all season. If nobody hasn't heard about it, check it out in the Newport Post. Yeah, the New York Post. New England 2-0, obviously the class of the division. Cheating or no cheating. I mean, they loaded up offensively. I mean, with Randy Moss and Tom Brady, he just knows what the heck is going on. He knows what to do with the ball.
And Dallas Thomas was a huge addition to that defense.
I mean, their defense is solid. They're tough against the run. And offensively, this team is just going to be tough to stop. They're 16.5-point favorites against Buffalo.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, I go back to the 49ers and Cowboy days
Yep.
when those guys were 14 and 16 points every week. So it'd be interesting to see how New England plays, though, coming off that big San Diego win. Maybe a little letdown. A lot of points. Buffalo coming in. But Buffalo's offense is, J.P. Losman, kind of putrid. So, that's going to be a struggle for Buffalo. Certainly you're going to give New England the win there. Miami's at the Jets. One of those teams going to go 0-3. It's in New York. Yeah, it's going to be a tough battle there, but I would say that New England will probably walk away with this division, wouldn't you?
Oh, it certainly seems that way. Distractions or not, this team we talked about earlier on is extremely motivated to play well. They want to step up for their coach. They want to prove that it wasn't, cheating that got them this incredible run that they've had. I just see them absolutely running away with that division. It is going to be a no contest. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go undefeated within the division. Wouldn't shock me at all.
I mean, they got 76 points in 2 games.
Yep.
Buffalo's got 17. Woo! Miami's got 33. And New York has got 27, so
yep.
When you line up against New England and you got you got Maroney, which not the biggest factor in the world, but still you got Moss, you got Watson, who's is having a good year so far with a couple touchdowns. You got Dante Stallworth, you got my man Wes Welker, who came over from Miami, and of course we called it. We said this guy's going to have a lot of room to roam.
Absolutely.
Because everybody else is going to be covered. He's going to become a favorite target of Tom Brady. At least getting the first downs and stuff like that, not so much in the end zone, but he's going to be open a lot. So remains to be seen how this whole New England thing plays out. But the AFC East, I mean, that's pretty much theirs for the taking. They're already 2 games up on everybody.
No question about it. It's they're going to run away with it unless something. The only thing that can derail them, let's put it this way, is Tom Brady getting hurt. That's the only thing that can derail them. Other than that, they're pretty much set up. You just jinxed them. I hope so.
Well, thank you for watching. This great edition of It's a Sports Show. Jay, thank you for coming in.
Thanks
Jay
for having me. I
Paris,
appreciate it.
Jen, Carlos, have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week.